Today I'm gonna answer your questions.
Dreadlabs.
What's going on, everyone? My name is Tom from Dreadlabs, and I've been a graphic designer for over 8 years now, and I've been a music producer for over 13 years, and as you might know, I run this channel called Dreadlabs. This is a creative hub and a community that basically consists of mostly graphic designers and visual artists, but also music producers and fashion enthusiasts. If you just randomly stumbled upon this video, I highly recommend checking out a couple of tutorials that I host, because I do tutorials in Photoshop, Illustrator, Cinema 4D, and much more. But today I'm going to answer questions from the community. So in Instagram, Discord, and YouTube community posts, I ask people to ask me questions, and I picked out a couple of them that I can answer that might also be useful to you. And I do this video in order to celebrate that I got 75,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for all the support. It's been an unreal journey. We're almost 3 years old now at Dreadlabs. I've been doing this for almost 3 years now, which is insane. And yeah, I just couldn't be more happy to be here. It's all thanks to you. And just wanted to get that out of the way. And now let's get into the questions, shall we? So the first question is, how are you doing these days? So I'm not sure if this is just a random question that someone sent me, because I don't have the person who sent this to me right on the screen here. I need to do that back in editing. But as you might have seen from my channel, from the amount of live streams that I've been doing, and I've been a little bit less active on social media, and it started kind of like around the end of the summer last year, where I started to decide that I didn't want to put as much effort into Instagram as I wanted to be, because it was actively trying to fill creators, as someone also has a question about later on in the video. At this point, I tried to put more energy in other things Dreadlabs related, but in the end there were a couple of personal issues that happened, which resulted in me not being able to put as much effort and motivation into Dreadlabs as I wanted to. I'm back on track right now. I still have a lot of inspiration. I do have a lot of videos and shorts and other types of content that I want to share with you in the coming year, and the goal of this year is to get back to where I originally started, which is my online community, instead of doing stuff in the physical world. I'm still gonna do that, but the focus will be laying more on doing YouTube tutorials and doing a lot of asset packs and cool other stuff that you as a viewer on the internet might be more interested in than my physical events. So the next question is, honestly, I'm trying to learn graphic design and Photoshop, but I'm straight up lost. Any tips to get started? Okay, so one thing that I would advise you is not go with like one of these 1 hour long tutorials where it's just someone going over every feature of Photoshop, because those don't really feel productive. I would say grab a couple of channels, YouTube videos, make a long playlist with shorter tutorials that will help you try to, create something that you're actually interested in. For example, if you want to do collages, look up collage tutorials in Photoshop, and do not look up how to get started in Photoshop, because usually those tutorials are kind of a drag, in my opinion. I didn't really have a good experience with them, and I didn't really learn a lot from them, because my attention span wasn't really ready for that. It was a little bit too overwhelming, because it was all of the features way too fast, and it doesn't really explain anything and what you can actually do with them. And I found that using tutorials with a particular thing that you want to achieve and following that and try to understand why the person is doing what he does actually works better. And that's also why in my tutorials I usually try to explain what it is that I'm actually doing in the feature, instead of just saying that you have to follow along, because you don't really learn a lot from that. I hope this is useful to you, and otherwise you can just join us on Discord and we'll try to help you in a more fit manner, I guess. As a designer, you have a distinct style. How did you develop / find your aesthetic and design style, and how can new designers find that style, I presume? So basically, I think it's about 5 years ago now, I just found out about this aesthetic through a couple of designers I was working with at the time, and I did a little bit of more of a deep dive onto Pinterest and Instagram, started following more and more designers, and then the style emerged a little bit more, and it started to grow, and a lot of other designers started to pop up. And I was just keeping track a lot with those designers on Instagram at the time, but of course back then Reels weren't even a thing yet, and the algorithm wasn't as well f***ed up as it was right now. So it was kind of in a different time. But what I usually try to do is, if I have to find a certain aesthetic, because sometimes I do stuff in other styles, you might not see that a lot, but that's because I don't really publish that on Dreadlabs. But what I do is I just find Pinterest boards. I try to find inspiration by browsing through books and stuff like that, and making my own mood boards, and starting to see in those mood boards, okay, what's like a common thing that you can see happening here. 5 years ago it was that chrome styling, and then for me it was just, okay, how can I define that chrome style? How can I do that in Photoshop? And starting to learn from there. So another question is how to come up with sick typos and imagine them. So I don't really consider myself as a typography artist, because I don't really do that too much. I do logo designs, I do handmade typography, but I don't do them that often. And I get a lot of questions about this on Discord, and in my Q&As and in my Instagram. And I think I have to do a little bit more on it, like video wise, but what I usually try to do is sketch stuff out, scanning that in and digitalizing it. So if you don't really know what I'm talking about, I would highly recommend recommend checking out a video that I did a couple of months ago where I redesigned Drake's album cover of Honestly Nevermind, because I go over the process on how to come up with like a typography thing right there. I think that's a nice way to start, I guess, and otherwise I guess I would always say try to start following typography designers. Maybe there are a couple of ones that share their process on YouTube or Instagram. So the next question is, how do you get your references and inspiration, and do you sometimes get stuck on a certain style, and if so, how to get out of that loop? I'll start with the first part of the question. That's how I get my references. I have a pretty large collection of design books of all different types of styles, and I'm actually sharing them in a video series. The next episode will be released pretty soon. But next to my collection, I also keep a lot of Pinterest books. I also make a lot of physical mood boards, so you can just like browse all of these things like in the physical world. For example, in the back of my office wall, I have a giant wall of old rave flyers from the early /late 90s. It really helps me out in defining a certain aesthetic. And if I want to get out of that loop, so to answer the second part of your question, what I would do is basically detach yourself from it. So maybe like for me, I wouldn't go into my office if I want to detach myself from that loop a little bit. Maybe stay at home and make other mood boards, or maybe like browse other books, maybe like see if I can visit a place or a museum or whatever it is that helps me like define or see another style, so I can just kind of reset myself a little bit. And another thing is obviously like, or maybe not obvious for you, but for me is sometimes you just have to take a day off and don't start working on something creatively, and try to reset your mind a little bit. Maybe do some like low effort stuff, so maybe clean up your inbox or your downloads folder or your computer in general, clean up your desk or your workspace, and then wait for another day to feel better and maybe more motivated in order to start something new. Alright, the next question is kind of a long one, but I'm happy to answer it, but I'll just read it out right now. Sorry if this is a common question for you, but I was wondering how you went about acquiring your technical skills and creative vision. I'd love to be on your level someday, but I was wondering if you had some sort of educational background in graphic design. Regardless, I was wondering if you have any tips on developing your technical/creative skills outside of an academic structure like art school. So I do have a background in communications and multimedia design and a little bit in IT. So I know a little bit of coding. I was supposed to learn a little bit of Adobe CC on my communications and multimedia design education, but they basically had like one class in Photoshop and they were like, okay, you just have to teach yourself now, because to be honest, the teachers there weren't really good at it anyway. And I am not a big fan of the school I went to personally, and I'm not saying that this is the same for everyone. I do believe that there are a lot of prestigious academies in design or in art, but for me, art or design school doesn't really work, but because I have personal experience that most of my teachers are actually people who failed in the industry, so they weren't able to get an actual job when they graduated themselves, so they had no other choice other than become a teacher. And this really is visible in their motivation, in the way they talk to their students and stuff like that as well. So I wasn't really a fan of that. But that's me and that's my personal experience. So I went to a school. I didn't learn a lot there. I just taught myself a lot of stuff. I did get a great internship, however, where I learned a lot. And other than that, I just made time for myself in order to learn different types of software, and then started to experiment in order to receive desired results in a specific style, if that makes sense. So for example, what I used to do is I got on a home trainer, like I just was like biking on a home trainer, and I would just put on like LinkedIn Learning classes for Illustrator. And when I was done working out, I just went upstairs to my laptop and started experimenting with Illustrator. And when I was a little bit more experienced, I started seeing, okay, how can I use the technique that I already know of in order to create something that I don't really know how to make yet, if that makes sense. Because when I started, there weren't really a lot of tutorials in the niche that we are all in right now. However, that's now a different story, because there are a lot of great design YouTubers other than me out there that can teach you a lot that you want to know. So to sum it all up, what I would try to do is, if you're completely new to a type of software, is seeing if you can do a LinkedIn Learning class or something like that, because those worked pretty well for me, and you can combine it with, for example, working out. Starting to do a lot of experimenting, maybe share your work in Discords or other communities, and then also watch a lot of tutorials. The most important thing is keep making stuff and keep challenging yourself in order to create using new techniques or new things that you learned. Alright, so onward to the next question. I don't force you to answer this, but how did you get your first client? I'm a beginner and self-taught. It's been a year since I started to learn graphic design. I wonder how people got their first client. So for me, well, I'm gonna say for me, but I think this is for everyone. For everyone, this is a different, way, because I did get my first online client through Reddit. That was like 6 years ago, I think, and I did get my first client through someone I knew in real life. So I just quit IT school, and I did have enough experience to build websites, and I started building a website for a local printing shop that my stepdad knew. So I applied for a job there, and I gave them like a small pitch in a printed PDF book on what I could improve about their website, and then I just got the job. But then with graphic design and stuff, I just started like sharing a lot of my work online, a lot of free work as well, and I just made sure to also build a portfolio website and also get business cards. And if I would really want to land a client, I would just make a small like deck to show them like, okay, this is what I could do for you if you were to hire me. So yeah, I think it's a different story for everyone and a different method for everyone. But yeah, my actual first client that I got paid in order to do work for was building a website for a printing shop. And through that printing shop, I got a lot of other clients, but those were mostly corporate. And then when I started to do like more creative jobs, for example, I did event flyers and logos for other DJs and stuff like that. It was mainly because I did it for myself, and I was also like networking as a DJ at the time and doing events. And those actually, yeah, that's how I built up a network. And then people reached out to me like, oh, can you actually do a logo for me as well? If you're more interested in how I actually got to where I am right now, because I can imagine that it's quite a weird story because there's a lot going on in my history, I guess. Career-wise, I actually do have a video that contains the full timeline of my career, where you can see what I did ever since I started leaving high school. And maybe that gives you a little bit of a better insight of what I actually was doing at the time. All right, on to the next question. What designers do you admire or follow? Okay, I think that a lot of the designers I'm going to mention, most people already know, but a couple of the designers I really look up to are Obby Jappari, Yuta Kawaguchi, aka Gucci Maze, Sucuk Bratwurst. A couple of other ones that I really like are Jacopo Tripodi, and I hope I pronounce all of these names correctly, but I probably am not. There's also Mona Thomas, aka the CEO of, or like founder slash creative director slash owner of Huni Design, as well as a couple of others. And if you want to see the full list, I'm just going to mention all of them and their Instagram links down below in the description. That might be easier for you. All right, so the next question is, who was your first inspiration slash mentor? And have you ever had something like that? There was a period in time where I learned a lot because I was doing an internship for Yellow Claw, and during that time I worked a lot with Jordy Aarts and Regt. I will link both of their Instagram down in the description. As far as I know, none of us work at Yellow Claw anymore. Maybe some of them still do freelance work for them, but I don't. But during my time there, I actually learned a lot from them, and I had also a very nice environment in order to keep learning more. And because at the time I had two very experienced graphic designers with me, I could just ask them questions, and I also got a lot of honest feedback in order to get better and better. So the next one is kind of an interesting one, and that's what's your opinion on AI and the future of graphic design in general. And I'm not sure what, yeah, I think this is like meant like what AI will do to influence graphic design. And for now, I'm gonna say that we don't need to be scared. At this point in time, you can just see it pop up everywhere. And I think that we still right now need to see this as a tool. You might already know this, but Photoshop already uses AI and has been using AI for quite a while actually. For example, the quick selection tool and the select subject and all these selection stuff that actually uses an AI in order to determine what is to be considered a person or a subject or the sky or a background. And you know, back in the day, before Photoshop even became a thing, designers were already like kind of scared, like, oh, this is gonna put us out of business because everyone will be able to use this tool. And of course the tool that it uses gets easier and easier. But for now, I don't really see actually like the danger of AI yet. And that's because, yes, for example, 3D renders and stuff can become a little bit harder, but for now I think we can use prompt-based AI as a tool in order to create concept art that we can then better ourselves. Because if we look at a lot of AI stuff that I've been generating myself or like anyone, I do see like, oh, it's really cool that it's actually this easy in order to create something like this, but it still all kind of looks a little bit wonky enough. So especially if you're like an artist, you can use it to whip up a lot of quick like ideas and then use those in order to create your actual first sketch, for example. That's what I am thinking of. And then, well, the future of graphic design in general and what impact the AI will have on the future of graphic design, I think it will just make our jobs easier for now, and I don't really know where it's going because it might evolve way faster than I'm actually expecting because I'm not really that much into the development of AI yet. But yeah, for now I think we don't need to worry and see this as a tool. But the next question is also about the future of graphic design a little bit, and it's the design world right now is quite stale. What do you think it needs more of? This ties in with another question actually that's going to be asked later, but the thing is, the thing that bothers me a lot, and I don't want to, like, you can actually make me out as a hypocrite here, but the thing that bothers me a lot is I don't see a lot of good design on Instagram anymore. I just see people making videos and funny videos at that, and I've been doing this as well, so it feels a little bit weird to call people out on this even when I'm doing this myself. So the thing is, when I started in this community, I was seeing a lot of crazy work, and not a lot of people were like talking to each other yet because the Discord servers were also not really a thing for graphic designers. And back in those times, I just thought it was was really cool that a lot of people were just showing crazy designs, and a lot of people were wondering like how did he make this, how did she make that, and like that magic is a little bit gone for me. And I have been actually also actively like destroying this fairy tale myself by sharing tutorials of everything on my YouTube channel, of course. I do, however, believe that that like everyone should be able to get a lot of knowledge there. You know, knowledge should be accessible to a lot of people. But the thing is, like, looking at the algorithms right now, I'm just so bothered. I don't want to see people paying a Fiverr person $5 in order to make a logo. I don't want to see someone throwing books on their desk and, you know, getting millions of followers by sharing other people's content. I don't want to see a repost page reposting reposts, because yeah, for me personally it just annoys me a lot. And I think there are still a lot of people sharing a lot of cool work, and there are ways to, you know, involve yourself a little bit more in this. But the thing that's actually kind of funny is the question what the design world right now is quite stale, and I'm actually immediately going to the social media platforms on this, and that's because it's such a big impact on what we do now, and it's such a giant medium in order to you know, even get a grip on what the graphic design world right now is. To answer your question, what it needs more of is, I want to see a platform that actually actively helps people just see crazy designs. What I would want to do is I want to grab my phone, scroll through, and just see amazing design after amazing design after amazing design. And I don't need to see a process video. I don't need someone's face pointing in the camera, because that's like, we can keep that on Instagram or TikTok, but I would love a new platform where people can actually share their designs, maybe even case studies, a little bit like Behance, but a little bit more low effort, I guess. So we might have to just move to Behance with everyone, just in order to get back at Instagram for ruining our platform, actually. And other than that, I think it needs more people experimenting, not copying, but experimenting. And I actually started talking about this maybe like 2 years ago now, where I did a tutorial on how to find your own style, and just gave you a couple of methods in Photoshop in order to experiment and, you know, get crazy results that you might not was expecting. And I think that's something what we need. Like, for example, if I'd show you a tutorial on how to do a certain effect, I wouldn't want you to just copy every step along the way so you'll have the exact result that I have with different text or something. I want you to use those techniques, learn what they actually mean, and start applying it in other ways so that you can make something that's way better than the tutorial I shared with you. So that's what I would like to see more in the future in the graphic design community and in the visual art community at that. Also, less pointing tutorials. And the next question actually ties into the last question, and that's, how do you stay motivated while the Instagram algorithm seems to actively fail creators? And like I said, it does actively fail creators, unless you're pointing at your camera, throwing books around, shooting B-roll of yourself designing. I did a reel on this, you've probably seen it, and you can call me butthurt, and you can call me a hypocrite because I've been actively doing this myself, and that's all completely fine because I know that I'm doing it. For me, the thing is, I actually think it's sometimes funny to do stuff like that, and sometimes it's just like necessary, because I've been doing Dreadlabs full time, and I actually need to keep making money with Dreadlabs in order to give you guys free tutorials. So sometimes I'm kind of forced to do whatever the algorithm is saying, if you know what I mean. But how do I stay motivated? Or, you know, I think it's just a matter of seeing if you can move to a different platform or different communities in order to motivate yourself, and also try to detach yourself from the fact that likes, followers, and views aren't everything. If you actually want to do more creation, and I know by having more people see your work, you might get more clients or better clients or whatever. I know that, but the thing is, like, if you want to stay motivated, like for me, when I've been doing this way before Dreadlabs and way before I was actually making money with this as a freelancer. And what it did was, I was just motivated by making stuff that I liked. So what might be helpful for you is just to detach yourself from social media or the internet for a while, and just started creating. And like, if you've been done creating, you know, see if you can get inspired by reading books, browsing Pinterest, whatever you think is necessary in order to inspire yourself, making mood boards maybe. And like, there's a lot of the creative process that isn't going on Instagram or on TikTok or on YouTube or whatever it is where you're at in your creative journey. And I think that's also the most beautiful part. And I think it's just see if you can detach yourself from the negativity and like the rat race of the algorithm, and see if you can focus more on creating and inspiring yourself. That should give you at least a little bit of a boost in order to do other stuff. For me, for example, I recently started picking up painting. I've been doing that for a while in the background, but never really like did a lot with it. But now I use a lot of spray paint and other techniques that I learned over the years, and I just started combining them a little bit, and it's just been really fun. I also keep a personal sketchbook, and in that I do collages, I do drawings, drawings, illustrations, a little bit of painting as well. And I'm not going to show it to you because that's just for me, and that's something that I do for fun, and something that really like happens a lot with me personally is if I make something, I'm immediately like, oh, I can make this into a Dreadlabs video, I can make a tutorial about this or whatever. And for me, that sketchbook and that painting process, that's just something that's for me. Maybe I will share it with you once I'm actually finished with the sketchbook, or if the paintings are finished already or whatever. But for now, I just want to do it because it's fun, and that's something that you have to remember. We're doing this because it's fun, or we're doing this because, you know, it motivates us because it's fun. I would say try to eliminate the social media factor for a while and see if you can get back to the core. After that, I think it's time to dive back into it, see if you can do a little bit more with it. But also, if this keeps going the way that I think it's heading on Instagram, I think it's time to find a new platform or find other ways to find clients. So maybe that will be in real life, maybe that's Behance, maybe that's another way, I'm not sure yet. But yeah, I don't think Instagram is the main or prime way to get clients anymore. So the last question. Before we actually head off and answer this, I just wanted to say a huge shout out to all of my patrons. If you don't know, thanks to all of my patrons, I'm actually able to keep up the weekly videos for you guys, make you guys tutorials every single week, and, you know, sharing my knowledge with you. And I need to do that Dreadlabs full time in order to do that. And thanks to my patrons, I'm actually able to do that. I think that was a really long explanation of something that I could have said in one sentence. But anyway, as a thank you for becoming a patron, you'll get access to all of the project files from all of my tutorials, which at this point contains over 100 Photoshop files for you to use, as well as an exclusive Discord role and a 15% discount in my asset web store, where you can get textures, renders, vectors, fonts, and more. If you go one tier up, you'll also get access to exclusive tutorials such as how to start your own clothing brand, how to make a death metal logo from scratch, and how to design a Y2K rave flyer. So if this is something you're interested in, there's a link down in the description. And if you don't have the budget to support Dreadlabs in that way, leaving a like, comment, and subscribe already does a lot. A huge shout out to my patrons, and let's continue to the last question. And the last question is, when will you do a contest? So I've been thinking about this, and at the time of recording this, it might go up a little bit later, but at the time of recording this, 36 days of typing has not been announced yet, but it will be sometime soon. And when it does, I actually want to join that challenge, and after that I want to do another contest again, just before the summer actually. I'm not sure what it will be yet, but I think it will be like a nice design contest, and you will be able to win a couple of assets. And of course, so it's still a couple months down the road, but in October we'll do the Creatober challenge once more, and during that challenge you can actually win a lot of assets as well from Dreadlabs. Those were all of the questions that you sent me. Thank you so much for sending them in, and once again, thank you so much for the 75,000 subscribers. I'm really thankful for how big the community is getting, and how even after almost 3 years we still have built up one of the largest, most nurturing, most wholesome graphic design communities in the scene, I think, in my opinion, of course. So yeah, thank you so much everyone, you're all awesome, and this is Tom from Dreadlabs tuning out. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully see you guys in the next video.